Good afternoon. All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's just about 2 o'clock here on the East Coast. Hope everybody can hear me. That's always the first thing. If you could be so kind as to find the question box and let me know in the question box if you can hear me okay. Maybe let me know where you are in the world. Always interested to see where people are tuning in from. We'll get started in about 30 seconds. People are still joining in. So just head over to the question box. Let me know where you are. Cool. People can hear me. That's always great. Cleveland, we got Reading, Pennsylvania. Awesome. So we got looks like mostly East Coast folks now. I like to try and do these, usually we do these around 2 p.m., 1 p.m. in the afternoon here Eastern time, but if you're in a different part of the world, let me know where you are, what's convenient for you guys as well, because we like to make sure we mix it up if this is a good time for you. Awesome. Got Chicago, Treasure Island, Florida. Cool. Sounds like an awesome place. Bet it's warm down there. Up in here in Connecticut, I'm up in Connecticut. It's not too bad. It's actually, I can't complain at all. We've had like the mildest winter ever that I can remember. I mean, it's like it was 60 degrees earlier this week, which is crazy for early March, late February. So we've had some amazing weather, and I'm gonna knock on wood. I hate getting the snowblower out and snow blowing. I hate it with passion because snow always comes with wind up here, and strangely enough, whichever way I'm blowing the snow, the wind is always strangely blowing it right back at me. So all right, guys, I'm going to get started. We are recording this, so if you're listening to the recording, thanks for tuning in. And actually, what I'd like to know from everybody, are you currently a user? Are you a trial member? Are you just tuning in to see if you want to become a trial member? This is really kind of a beginner's webinar. So I want to, and we should be not a huge group of people here. So I'd like to really focus this on what you guys need. So if you tell me real quick before I dig in, where you are, what you're kind of looking for. If you have some questions, let me know, because I'll adjust this to the group here. So haven't gotten on a trial yet, checking the product out. We are users, John's a user, so cool. A few people checking the product out. So I'm going to start with, and if there's anybody who has no idea what audit is, let me know if this is like the first time you're ever hearing about this tool. I think based on the answers here, what I'm going to do is start out with I'll start out with kind of high level, information about what audit is, really going through the end result of what audit is. So let me actually share the screen first, so that'll make it a little easier for you all to understand what we're going to talk about. All right, so you should be seeing now the first real page of the audit report, right? There's a few pages above, which are just, the baseline plan. It's got my logo on here, got some information about the audit, and then the cover page, right? Typically, when our users will create an audit, they're creating one of two types of audits. And I'm going to start with this because this is really important. There's a proposed audit, which is what you're looking at, and then there's just a single audit. What's this popping up at me here? Weird things popping up. Okay. Get rid of that. So you can print an audit as what we call a standalone audit, which is just the one audit you're working on. Okay. Or you can create a proposed audit, which is let me back up. A standalone audit and a comparative audit. Okay, comparative audit is squeezing two audits together. A standalone audit is a standalone. So what you're looking at is really a comparative analysis audit, and I'll show you how to generate this. I'll show you how it's done. But I want you to understand that those are the two key ways you can print out an audit. The first one is just one audit. It's going to be just one. The second one is going to be 2 kind of crammed together with a comparative analysis page. And the comparative report is typically what you would use for a proposed audit when you're doing a proposal. So this, for example, is created for a prospect, went out and did the technical assessment, and this is an imaginary prospect here, made up prospect. So we went out and did the technical assessment in our first appointment, came back, filled out the audit, prepared the audit, and then went back to do a review and proposal. And what we do with this is we print it full color, single-sided, so that they're not looking at the second page while you're talking about the first page. And we bind it with a kind of a wire binding. You bring it to a local printer and they do this for you. A backing to make it, like a hard backing, black, usually black or blue backing, and then a clear cover. It really looks nice and it really pops when you do it that way. So dig down here. And the first page of the audit is called the summary. We call it summary impact page, and it's really designed to show them visually where they're at. Now from here, what happens is the prospect should be looking at this and get kind of emotionally involved as opposed to logic. And I've talked about this, if you've heard me speak recently, talk a lot about why emotion is important in your sales presentation. And studies, study after study after study throughout the years has been done to prove that when you start talking about data points, logic, more complex information, it triggers the wrong part of the brain for you to sell to. We want to trigger the emotional part of the brain. And there's a great study in a book called Made Stick where they discovered that when given a non-technical question and then given a non-technical presentation, more people would end up making purchases than if they were presented with a technical question or technical type presentation. And then there's study after study after study on this stuff that proves it. This is non-technical, right? It's designed to trigger emotion. And generally what happens is the client, the prospect leans in and goes, wow, that's a lot of red. And that's what you want. You want to stimulate that emotional center because that's where people buy from. Again, scientifically proven. I'm not telling you anything that is not, which is why you hear that phrase all the time, or if you study sales, you hear the phrase, people buy on emotion and justify with logic, and that is so true. So this is really impactful when they see it. It kind of takes them out, it grabs their attention, and it pulls them into the conversation. They're really paying attention, and they're really interested in asking you questions. And that's really important because when you can get the prospect asking you questions or the client asking you questions instead of you talking at them, they're interested, they're listening, they're paying attention, they're involved, and that's so important for the sales process. So, and I'll just remind you guys, ask questions as you're going. If you have questions, I'm happy to stop and answer them for you as we're going because we do have a small group. So, a couple things on this impact page here. There's an audit score down here. You see that's a 23. And the way the audit score is generated, it's automatically created depending on how much red, yellow, and green you have. If you have absolute red, like if this is all red, it's going to be 0. If this was all green, it's going to be 100. Okay, so this triggers emotion again because it's a failing grade and nobody wants to get a failing grade. So they're getting a 23, which means in their mind, they're going to think, wow, I'm getting only 23% of what I should. This is the financial summary is an optional piece that you can you can print on the report or you can hold off of the report. In this case, I printed it on the report. And what this does is creates this down here, this effective monthly IT expense based on the audit score. So think about this. The math is if they're spending $1,200 and they're only getting to a 23 out of 100, what if we doubled it to get them to a 46, right? We're doubling their score. Well, that would, in their mind, and they're going to think this whether you put the financial summary on here or not, they're going to think if they double my score to get me to a 46, they could potentially double my price to 40 to 2,400, right? And then to get it to 100, that's what this is saying here is to get you to 100, it could cost as much as $5,217. Right? That's how that's calculated, straight line extrapolation. And again, if this number doesn't make sense, you can leave it off the report. They're going to price anchor themselves whatever you do, right? If you put a low number in here, they're going to like, you know, if this number was 50, your unit price becomes like 12%, 1,200 to get to a 50. And they're going to think it's going to be 2,400 to get me to 100. And they're going to start to be concerned with that because it's a higher number than what they're paying, right? So that anchors in the higher price. When you show your price, they won't get that sticker shock because they're going to compare your price that you're going to propose for them to the effective price, to the imagined higher price, whether you put this on here or not, which is brilliant because it helps you get around price objections. So as you go down, we have detail pages, and this is as deep into the details as we go. Everything is, and let me explain some of the terminology here so you'll understand when we get into the software. Infrastructure is called a category. We call these categories. We call these audit items. So server is an audit item, backup and disaster recovery is an audit item. What you see inside of the audit item here is a summary statement. You will be able to create your own summary statements in the software. Everybody can do that. We give you items and categories that are kind of predefined. And we also load up predefined summary statements that you can use, but you can always customize your own summary statements as you would like. When you try audit, you're also going to get our customization feature when you go on a trial, or if you're a customer, you're currently a user, you'll know you probably have customization. 90% of our users prefer to be able to customize it. That means you can make your own category. You can name this whatever you want, and you can create your own items. That's a special feature in audit that allows you to customize. So here we have each of these items with the summary statement, and the summary statement is designed to be a very simple statement that bottom lines it for your customer. We stay very far away from the details. Again, details, technical details, confuse prospects. We want to keep them more towards the emotion, so we bottom line it, and it keeps them focused on the emotion. So as you go down, we're going to go through each category here, and then we have infographics attached to any summaries, any items where there are infographics. There's not 100% infographics, but for many of them that are especially the important ones, we have infographics here, and they really help you to explain things once the prospect asks you questions, right? They may say, well, what's backup? Tell me more about backup and disaster recovery, why you think it's a problem or whatever. You can dig into the summary statement here. Or if they're confused on something, like they say, well, what exactly is hosted exchange? I don't understand. Here's your infographic to help you explain it. Because it's visual, it keeps them emotionally engaged as opposed to focused on details. Now, if you were doing a standalone audit, the last page of this report would be the last infographic. Let's keep going here. Now, because we printed this as a comparison plan, the last page of the audit is going to be our comparative analysis, and it starts with a brand new audit, right? This is another audit that we created, and what we typically do is create what's called a baseline audit, which is the first one that you saw. That's what we went through, which is the state of their IT today. We call that the baseline. Then I clone it, right? I clone that baseline, and I change what is red and yellow to pretty much green based on where we want to take them. So this is what we're going to propose for them. You can see now we're proposing to get them to $2,400 of MRR, and to get them mostly to green to a score of 91. And you can see the effective monthly IT expense is still in play here because we're not getting to them to 100 just yet. So they can still see that they're underspending. Now, as you get with this, we have a lot of users who do leave this financial summary off. We have a lot who love it because, and I was talking to one of our users the other day in Texas, and he was telling me this number is like spooky because it's almost exactly where it should be. The only time you don't want to use it is if it's not going to jibe with what you're proposing or what is in kind of the realm of reality, right? If it looks like a wacky number, because it is going to be calculated by score. So it may be off. It's also not going to include any upfront costs that they would incur, like workstations or any kind of project work that you're doing. It's only monthly IT expense. So we dig down, the report's going to be exactly the same, the 4 categories or 3 categories or however many categories you report on. And then the last page is your comparative analysis. Okay, and this is what I call the close page. We go through everything, they've asked questions, they're really engaged, and now we're going to just simply review, right? Here's your base plan, here's where you are today. You scored a 23 out of 100. You're spending $1,200 to get to 23. Now, based on that audit score and what you're currently spending, you could be looking as much as $5,217 to, that's a weird one, $5,217 to get you to 100 under your current, with your current provider, but we're going to get you to a 91 based on your needs and what we understand here, and we're only going to charge you $2,400. Right now is a different conversation, and they're going to ideally, this is a number that's double from what they're paying, but they're not going to be as sticker shocked as they would be because they've got this score, they've got this financial summary, and it really helps them get around that price objection because that price anchoring really works. It's a cognitive psychology, behavioral psychology type of technique that really, really works. It gets that higher value in their mind, and they start to see the value gap, what they're missing. So they're not necessarily focused on price anymore. Now, cool little technique that I like to, that I know our founder, the founder of the company, Frank, who is a full-time MSP. He's using audit on a regular basis, selling, and you know, he's the poster child for the success of this system, not only creating it, but using it. And what he does is once you get to this page and they say yes, there may be price issues that still come up. And that is not a price objection at that point, right? A price objection is when they say, well, this is too much, right? This is just too much money. I don't see the value. There's a difference between that and them saying something like, okay, yeah, we know we've got to do this. We understand that we're not paying nearly enough, but $2,400 is a little bit out of our budget. We did have budgeted for 2,000. Is there any way we can get that number back down a little bit? That's not a price objection anymore. That's just simple reality negotiations, right? So what Frank would do in this case is he would go back here to the report pages of the categories, and he would say, you know, which of these areas should we turn back to red? And that is literally what he says to folks, and it becomes a different conversation because now they see the value, they see what these things mean, they understand it more, and it's not so bulky with so much technical detail that they can't go through this quickly. So now it's kind of on them going, okay, well, what about email encryption? What does that do? We better keep that. Let's keep that. What else can we look at? And it puts it back in their court based on value as opposed to based on just dollars and cents. So there's a great little technique. So that is kind of a high level of what audit looks like, how audit works in the real world. Okay. And at this point, before I go into the system and generate one, let me know if you have questions. And hopefully I won't give anybody like the strobe effect here. I want to reiterate again that if you were doing now a business review with your client, because you know we have most of our clients will use, most of our users, audit users, will use audit to sell, and then ideally continue to use it in business reviews. So a business review is just going to look similar to this, right? It's going to probably hopefully be a lot more green once you're working with them. And then you're printing it as a standalone. So you're not necessarily creating that comparison. So any questions before I dig into the software? Let's see, you got one question. How would a client without a current IT monthly expense be sold with the financial summary? So Jason's asking, good question. If you don't have that monthly IT expense, it's leave it off, and I'll show you how to leave it off in the report. So let's say you've got a person who's break fix, right? Or they don't have an MSP yet. It's obviously they're not spending a monthly IT expense, so to speak, but they could be spending something. And if you dig, you may be able to uncover something to kind of give a range. And you'll see that inside the software, we can give it a range. We don't necessarily have to put an exact number in. So, for example, if a company is like, if you're kind of still doing break fix for a company, or you're doing a proposal, you know, a technical assessment for a company that's working with another provider that they just do break fix, they probably still have computers. So trying to get that number out of them may be as simple as kind of questioning them on what they're spending on their, monthly on buying new computers, or what they spent during the year on new computers. What did they spend on, are they doing any kind of backup and disaster recovery? Are they doing any kind of, do they have antivirus? Or, digging into the little details will help you put together a picture. And you could always come back and say, based on what I understand, you spent like $5,000 last year on new equipment, in computers and workstations, and you're running Norton antivirus, which costs this much a month, and you're also doing, you have anti-spam here for this much a month, and then you can kind of go, okay, we think you're spending, when you break it all down, what you spent during the year on computer expense, and they can get this out of QuickBooks, right? Go and look at your computer internet expense. You spent roughly between $500 to $1,000 a month, even though they're not on a monthly IT recurring expense. So you can kind of get those numbers out of them if you question them enough, because everybody's got a computer expense. I don't care, even if they're not currently using a managed service provider, they're spending money on computers, and unless they're like working, they're like a time traveling company from 1970 something. So with that said, if there's no more questions, I'll wait another moment and we can go into the tool. Okay, and hopefully that answers, Jason. If that doesn't answer your question, let me know. So here we are in Audit. When you come into the tool, this is what you're going to see. Now, I have what's called Oddities, and I'll go through the lingo with you. When you first log in, this will be empty. All this stuff's going to be empty, and as you start adding clients and prospects in here, it'll fill up. So go through some of the dashboard items here. Oops, sorry. Oddities are the clients. We use that for client prospect, right? Like that's your clients, or your prospect is an auditee. An audit item are the 9 boxes that you see in each of the categories are items. And then the 4 categories that you saw are called categories. And we have templates. You're going to be given 4 templates when you sign up: cloud services with and without telecom, and managed services with and without telecom. These are, I have a kind of a test system, a little different system with some items, categories I created and templates I created. But for the most part, you're going to get these 2 and these 2. From there, you can just simply clone templates and adjust them over here. Some of the admin stuff, your auditors is you. Okay, that's you. And your system setup, really easy in our system, is just simply adding a logo. We have 2-factor authentication you can set up for your auditors, your company name, company currency. That's really all that you need to set up, and then you're off to the races. And the template, the system will take your logo and adjust it. So you don't have to worry about a logo size. If it looks funky, email in or chat at me through the website and let me know, and I will work with you to make it look nice. Inside of the system here, there's quick start training, which will go over what we're really going over today. So if you're not sure of some of the lingo, once you get back in and you start using it, you can always go to this quick start training and kind of review short videos. We have a referral rewards program. So if you are a paying user of Audit and you refer it to some of your peers, you will get $50 credit for everyone who you refer on your account. So pretty cool thing. All right, so I'm going to start with showing you how to work the templates, because that's really the first place you want to stop. Pick your, I cloned here managed services without telecom. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and edit this guy. So we'll say managed services without telecom for lawyers or whatever, and save my template name. From here, this is what it looks like. You can disable, as long as you have customization, you can disable anything you want or enable anything you want. And you can add whatever you would like here. If you have a custom category, you can add it in the 4th category. So if you wanted to do HIPAA, you could create a custom category and call it HIPAA. When you're in your categories, you'll see you'll have infrastructure, security, managed support and services, and telecom. This one is my own here that I'm testing, so don't pay any attention to that. But you'll have these 4. Here's your custom category area. You can see down here, I've got this category called compliance. And it has no audit, just one audit item in it. If I wanted to assign audit items, I would come in here and I could just say, I want to put this in this category. And you can see you have to have 9 items in order to select a category in an audit. So you always have to have 9 items per category to keep the symmetry of the report the way it should be. Okay, so that's a custom category. If I can add as many custom categories as I want. I simply come in here, name it, add a description, and save it. And you have to do it in 2 parts. You also have to go in and add audit items. So let's see, another compliance item. I'll add this here. Then I kind of got to go look for it because I have so many items. Okay, and you can see here I have the item that I just created. This is a feature coming soon. We'll get into that in a moment, what the fact finding is. Here's your summary statements. Every single audit item automatically gets these 3 summary statements. Green is satisfactory, yellow is needs improvement, and red is requires immediate attention. You can add new audit items here. So I have 150 characters to add. And then you choose a color. You add it. Now I've got my custom summary statements. There's many items where we've provided predefined summary statements based on best practices. So you'll see those in items that you go into, but you'll always see these 3 in every item. You can toggle on off. If you haven't used it, you can delete it. Once it's in use, you can't delete it. And you can always go back and edit an audit item. If you go, oh, shoot, I meant to make this yellow, go back and change it here. Or if you need to misspelled something or add something to it, you can edit that there at the item level. Now I can add it to a category. So I can go back and add it to compliance right here if I want. Or I could do that from within the category, going to compliance and find my audit item that I just added, which is, let's see, another, there it is. It's usually better to add it from the item level because it's a little bit easier to see. So we'll add that there. Now it's in that category. So that's kind of how you build out custom categories and custom items. You'll toggle between using these 2 menu options to create your own custom categories here. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Ask a question if you have a question, let me know. Let's go back into our templates at this point. Edit. And you can always create, I hope you saw that new template button. You can add a new template from scratch if you'd like, but I highly recommend cloning it just because it's easier, right? If you make it new, it's just all this stuff's gonna be blank and then you have to add it. Now to add it is fairly easy. You just click on view and edit category and you have a pick list here on the left. Anytime you hit the view and edit category, you're gonna kind of see this inside view. So if you don't want something on here, you can delete. All right, we've got a whole. Now we're going to come back and I'm going to put business continuity on here. I just drop it wherever I want it. If you want to move things around, you just drop things on top of each other to move things around. The weight here, you'll see each thing has a weight. The weight affects the audit score. And I'm going to show you that. It'll be easier to see it when we put an audit together. The higher the weight, the more it impacts the score. So what that means is if a score is 50, for example, and this item is red, and I make this weight a 5 when it was a 1, it's going to make the score lower. If I lower the weight, it's going to make the score slightly higher. So, and that'll make more sense later on. Here is your infographic. This means there is an infographic associated here. So if you click on it, you'll actually see the infographic. You can also upload infographics on your own, as long as you have customization enabled. And here's where my account's a little wonky because many things with my testing. So I may not be able to, I'm not able to upload, but you will be able to, if you have customization, be able to upload your own infographics, and you'll see that in your system when you get set up. We set everybody up when you sign up for a trial. Everybody has customization active. It can be downgraded if you don't use it, but we want you to try it so that you get a feel for it. So once you have things in each of your categories set for your template, you're ready to go. And I suggest spending some time thinking through how you want your template to be laid out, because it just makes doing the audits much easier. That way you don't have to go in to each audit each time you do it and adjust things. You just do it once when you do the template. So from there, we'd go over to Oddities, and this will all be blank for you when you start. Just hit Create Auditee, and you can start entering. No, I already have Acme. Let's make Hello Kitty. And this is not, this is just for your information. This is not anything that's going to show up on the reports. Once you do that, you select whether they're a client or a prospect, and that you can always change later. So we'll create this as a prospect. Later on, when we convert them, we make a decision whether we want to keep them as in the list of auditees, because audit does work on a tiered structure. The lowest price you come in on is going to get you up to 10 auditees. So some folks who don't want to do business reviews with it will just delete a auditee once they become a client. So, but if they become a client and you're going to keep them, you would just come here and change them to client. So let's go back. All right, so now you can see here my new company, Hello Kitty Company. There's no audit score to be seen because we haven't done anything yet. So from here, you go into the Audit Trail, and let me just check questions, see if anybody has any questions here. Everybody still with me? Cool. All right. So from here, you need to create your first audit for this auditee. So we will call this our base, and it's really the first audit anyway. So we use the term baseline. You'll see that in there. All right, I'm going to check my, I just created, where is it? Can't see it. Okay, just for speed of, oh, there it is, without telecom. Too much in there. All right, so now you have 3 types of audit types to choose from: baseline, proposed, and business review. Okay, so, and I explained to you, the proposed audit is going to be when you do your proposal. Business reviews, obviously, for your business reviews. And then baseline is the state of their IT when they enter the system. So I always suggest to people, even though you've got this button here, you should only use this once. Okay, we create this audit. Now you've got a baseline audit. When you're going to do a proposal or a business review, you really don't need to use this again. You just go and clone it, right? You clone it as a proposed plan, you clone it as a QBR plan. QBR is just short for quarterly business review, if you're not familiar with that. So from here, if you click anywhere, you'll be in the edit section. Now you can go and start building your audit. Okay, the first step is to, let's say you haven't done a technical assessment on this client yet. You're going out tomorrow to do your first technical assessment on this client. So you set everything up the way you want it. Now we have this tool called the Fact Finder. And you saw that in the summary state, in the audit items, there was a bar that said fact finding questions coming soon. That's associated with this Fact Finder. So Fact Finder is an optional tool you can use. It's a PDF. It's not meant to give to a customer. It's meant for you to take notes with. And here is just, again, kind of follows along with the paradigm and the setup of your audit. So we're gathering a little bit of information here about them, really trying to understand who they are. So we always recommend talk about the issues up front. You know, why are we here? Why are we doing a technical assessment? Well, we're not happy with our current provider because of XYZ. Well, how is that impacting your business? Why is this a problem? What's the urgency to fix this? Just kind of coaxing you to ask some really good questions designed to get your prospect telling you what's bothering them, what's on their mind, what do they need resolved, and really digging past the technology and getting into their business needs, because that's going to drive everything. And when you can get them talking about that, don't take this lightly. These are some great questions. When you can really get people talking in a sales discussion, they'll tell you exactly what they need to hear to become a client. Okay, technical point of contact, who supports the network now, current stuff, and then getting into financials. This is where you got to really probe sometimes. What's your current IT monthly expense? And if you don't know have an expense or not comfortable giving it to me, can you give me a range? We need to know what we're working with. And I know people get funny with that. So you really have to work at it to make sure people understand. I'm not asking you this to find out how much money I can charge you. I'm asking you this to understand, are you underpaying? Are you overpaying? That's really important to understand where you are and what we need to do to meet your needs. Can't understand that if I don't understand what you're paying. What's your IT budget? What's your current internet expense? What's your current telecom expense? And again, if they don't have an IT provider, I guarantee they have IT expenses. So I would coach them, say, go into your QuickBooks and tell me what you paid on IT related expenses for 2019, right? And or year to date, the past year to date. And then I'm going to take that number and I'm going to divide it by 12. And that's what their monthly IT expense is going to be in my system. That's how I'm going to do it. Buying criteria, who they're talking to, and then some technical information. Once you get that, this is just going to simply follow along with the way you've laid your audit out, right? And if you go back in and start adjusting your audit and print this again, you'll see that it will change based on how you've designed your specific audit. So if you're using this tool, do put your stuff together before you go out to do the technical assessment, and then print your fact finder, and it'll be a great little note-taking system for you. And our clients will just jot things in here as they're doing their walkthrough and doing their interview. From there, you're ready to kind of come back and start filling in the blanks. This will be inactive until you have a complete audit done. You have to have everything here be selected. Okay. Now we're going to go and edit our audit details first to put in what we understand their IT expenses, right? And if they give us a range, we're going to put in a range. If they give us an exact amount, we're going to put in an exact amount. And I can select here that I'm the auditor. And that's done. Now from here, to fill out the audit is as simple as clicking on it, brings up your summary statements, right? Here's the system summary statements. Here's the predefined or select summary statements, which are our custom summary statements. And here's your area where you can say, server is on fire, right? This is very red. And we can add this on a global level, which means it'll be here next time I come into server, for any audit I'm in, for any customer I'm in. I can do it for this auditee only, which means it'll be here for just this auditee when I'm in server, or for this audit only, which means it'll be here only for this specific audit, not any future audits, even though it's for the auditee. And you can see we're selected, so we'll just close the box and we're done. Server is done, right? And we're just going to do that for the rest of these guys. Now, with customization, if you're not reporting on infrastructure for any reason, you can actually disable it and it won't show on the report. The report will look like this, right? So you can have as little as one category live on your audit, or you can have infrastructure. We'll enable that again. You can have more of them. Not sure what happened to my go. I think it bounced when I made disabled. So you can see that came back kind of the way it was. And basically this is how you're going to complete your audit. You're just going to go through, add summary statements as you need them, or select the summary statements where they make sense. So because audit is a manual process, right? This is forcing you to go in here and manually select the summary statement for each of these guys. You can see here, by the way, we have a score right now. Watch what happens to this score when I change the weight. I'm going to move the weight from a 1 all the way up to a 5. The audit score went from a 27 to a 23. This audit score will be active once I've completed all of these categories. Let's see, question here. Cannot have more than 4 main groups. Jason's asking, can you have more than 4 main groups? So you can't have more than 4 categories. We've tested this a bunch of different ways, and I can promise you, if you start putting more than 4 categories down, you're going to start talking to, you're going to get too much into the weeds. The audit's designed to be a higher level, summary based, really baseline, getting down to the base of what the issue is, or for each thing, and really keeping the technical stuff out of it. If you have more than 9 items or more than 4 categories, you're going to get into the technical weeds. And we have so many clients using this successfully. We know that paradigm works. So sometimes it may seem like a leap of faith. Trust us, it works. 9 times out of 10, when you start trying to add more stuff, I can guarantee you that you can squeeze those things that you've got more of into one thing. You really can. And once you get used to it, it becomes very, very easy. Let's go through here. So again, you can see it's a manual process. You are basically taking data that you've gathered through fact finding, through scanning, through whatever method you used, and you're coming back here and you're analyzing it. I mean, I'm moving fast because I want to get through, complete this and show you what it looks like when it's done. But you're probably going to spend a little bit of time on each item. You may be, especially in the beginning, writing your own custom summary statements. As you start thinking through your summary statements, which is why it's a good idea to play around with that at first, to kind of put your personality into the summary statements, it becomes easier because they'll all be in the pick list. The first audit usually takes anywhere from 30 minutes to 60 minutes to get through. Once you've done that, it gets very much faster to do business reviews. I don't know what is happening with this. I don't know why that keeps disappearing. So now we are done. Now we have a full audit score here of 21. And each of these categories has an audit score. And again, I can enable this 4th category, make it my custom summary statement, or telecom. We always bundle in telecom into the system as a pre-done template for you. So you can add telecom here, it's all done for you. Or you can create your own summaries, your own categories and items as you go. And now we can print this, right? We can print this as a one standalone report, right? We're only printing this audit, no comparative data will be generated. If you're doing this as a business review, that's probably what you're going to end up doing, is printing just a standalone report, just to show them where you are this quarter. You may want to do a comparative report and show them, where they are this quarter compared to where they were this quarter last year, or last quarter, quarter to quarter. But for the most part, I think, a lot of our users print business reviews as single audits. From here, this is where it gets easier. You just clone it, right? So we would clone this as a proposed plan, for example. And now we just go in, we will edit our audit details, and we'll put in whatever we're going to charge them. We're going to make this proposed. There we go. So $2,000. We're going to propose form. And now we're going to go in here and we're going to basically just change a bunch of stuff to green. So as I'm doing this, let me know if you have any questions on this. And I'll tell you that as I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to backtrack what I was just going to say. And show you this when we go to the next step. So that's enough for now, right? So now when we go back to our audit trail, you're going to see we have a baseline plan and a proposed plan. Okay, now when we go in to do our print, okay, this is strange. My system is on a different server and a little bit, I'm on the test server, so it's a little wonky. Sometimes they make changes and do things that make these presentations a little strange, so don't pay too much attention to that. From here, now when we go to print the report, because we have 2 or more audits, we can actually print this one as the first base and then choose our proposed plan to print as the second. And here's our baseline plan, just like you saw before. So it's always going to be the same. It's showing the base plan first. We've got our comparative plan second, right? Here's our proposal, and here's our last page. Now, it's, let me make sure I know what I want to tell you is here's where you can unselect things. So if you don't want to show that financial summary block, you can just print it without it. Okay, you can also, if you leave it 0, so if you click that button off, it's going to leave it off the page. If you left your audit details, for example, I want to show my price, but I don't want to show their price, what they're paying, because maybe they don't have an MSP yet, and we've decided we're just not going to put an IT monthly expense on there. We would just make it 0. Now, when we go to print this report, oops, I'm going to put the box back on there. So now when we print the report, what you're going to see is the box is on there, but it's empty. Oop, no, this box is off, I'm sorry. So the no financial summary on mine because I left it at 0, but on my proposal, the box should be there, unless I pulled the wrong report. Yep, there's the box. All right, when you get down to the comparative, it doesn't have, you don't have an MSP yet, so you're not paying anything. So that's why that box is here. Here's what we're going to charge you. All right. Everybody's hanging in there with me. From there, we go back into the audit trail here. Now they become a customer. It's time to do a business review. So you just clone it as a QBR plan. And a couple strategies with QBRs. First of all, so this is QBR. This is quarter 1, 2020. So from here, we're just going to now change whatever's changed, right? I mean, it becomes much, much easier and faster to do. One of the little things that happens from time to time, and the reason why I think QBRs are so darn important, after a while, you're really reporting on the same thing. Everything's green, everything's doing well, but occasionally things happen, right? So for example, we'll view and edit this category. We're not going to do antivirus anymore. Instead, we are going to do next generation endpoint protection. We're going to put it right where antivirus was. And make sure our infographic is up on there. There we go. So now this report is going to have a red block where a green block was, and they're used to seeing those green blocks. So we're just going to print this as its own. Oops, no, we're going to print it as a standalone. So now when they come down here and in a business review, they're gonna really, their eyes gonna be really drawn to that. They're gonna go, hey, why is that red? And you're gonna go, well, you had antivirus, but we found that next generation endpoint protection is more powerful than antivirus that you had. And we've just kind of, we're not doing antivirus anymore. We're doing next gen. That's why it's red. And then you'll naturally have a infographic to help explain what that is. So it's a very powerful, easy way to go into every business review and walk out with more MRR and a happier client. not just more money, but a client that's more protected, which is really, really important. So that is pretty much at the end. We're pretty much at the end of how to use audit. It's that, that's all there is to it. Really, you put your auditee together. You're going to do an audit, baseline audit to start, and then you're going to clone them into either proposed plans, QBRs, and that's going to how it rolls, right? Like when you go back to that audit trail now, we have 3 different audits, right? This is where they started, this is what we proposed, and this is where they are today during this business review. Tomorrow I'm going to come in, next quarter I'm going to come in and clone this QBR as the new QBR. Go adjust the audit details to be Q2 of 2020. And then, this time they saw that and upgraded. So that's all good. We're going to come back here and did a few more things this quarter. And so now when you get back to your audit trail, you see how this kind of starts growing based on what you're doing, right? You can show them, here's where here's where you started, man. You're the 21, you're the 82 now. Pretty awesome, right? So when I go to print this, I may print this and compare it to where they were, or print this and compare it to where they were last quarter. Totally up to you. So Jason's asking, how would you incorporate new hardware, workstations, switches, or aging Wi-Fi in the quarterly report? It's really up to you, right? So we did a big blog post. You can find this on our blog, where our founder Frank DiBenedetto did a webinar. Me and him did a webinar where he discussed what he did, how he does QBRs, how he does business reviews. And he really went into a lot of detail on how he did it. He provided all sorts of materials, how, it's kind of like preparational, how he prepares for it. Good blog post. I would go back to our blog and take a look at that if you want to dive into that. But really simple, he'll run some other reports, right? When you do a prospect, when you go out and do a technical assessment, you're doing some fact finding. That's a given, right? You're going out, you're walking through, you're interviewing them. Same thing you're kind of doing when you do a business review. You're going through, for example, Frank uses Warranty Master. We highly recommend Warranty Master, and he actually inserts Warranty Master reports into audit because it's one of the rare reports he does that with, because it's so simple. Everything is about simplicity with audit, and he would never put anything in here that adds technical layers to it. But the Warranty Master Report's great because it basically shows all of the workstations in the company and whether they're red, yellow, or green, right? Whether they need to be replaced or not. So what he does is when he goes into his business review here, and let's go back into that auditee so we can take a look at it. So here's our auditee. Here's the Q2, right? He is going to go in, and you know what? We don't have workstations on here, so let's add some workstations. We'll take this guy off here, and we're going to go back down here, make sure workstations are on here. Now let's say that we're coming in here, we just cloned this guy. Like last quarter, workstations was, and we're going to make sure the infographic is turned on. It's always good practice to click on the up arrow when you add something, make sure that if there's an infographic, it's active. So let's go back to the audit trail and let's do another QBR just for workshopping purposes here. So workstations were fine. Now we're on Q3 2020, way into the future. He's going to run his report, real simple, and he's going to look at it and go, his Warranty Master report, he's going to go, oh, there's a workstation that needs to be replaced this quarter. I'm going to go in here and I'm making it yellow, right? And maybe I'm going one of 20 workstations needs replace. Hard to do this without looking. I'm just gonna make it yellow. And I'm gonna make it for this audit only. This is totally up to you, right? This is up to you as a practitioner, as the professional, to say, is this like red, yellow? What's the weight? What's the importance of this? Weight doesn't show up, but it again affects the audit score. Doesn't show up on the report as a weight number, but it does affect the score. So he's going to report on this based on what he sees that quarter, what he knows has changed. So if he thinks something needs to be addressed, he's going to make it red, yellow, and he's going to put or you should put a summary statement in there that reflects what you want to do, and then have your backup, right? If you've run reports, your internal reporting on your client before you do your business review and you find something needs to be addressed, you just come in here and address it. It's really simple. It's totally up to you on how you adjust and report on this. All you want to do is get their attention and give them the high level, bottom line, here's what the deal is, and then let them ask you the question. You know, and Frank will tell you this, I'm not an MSP, I'm a sales and marketing person. And I can tell you a lot about sales and marketing behavior and psychology that goes behind it. And I will tell you that one of the things that you can't do is unconfuse somebody once they're confused. And it really does get in the way of getting somebody to buy something, because once the logical part of the brain is churning, you really have lost the emotion, the ability to buy. And there was a cool study that was done, and I can't remember the book. I've got it. I'm looking at the book. It's on my shelf over there. I can't reach it. But there was a study done on a clinical study where they tested people who have had brain injuries that affected the emotional part of the brain, where they couldn't, that part of the brain wasn't working. And what they found is that people who have damage to the emotional center of the brain cannot make buying decisions. They cannot come to buying decisions. Again, it's just a little more scientific proof that you have to start with the emotional conversation before you get into the detail. And it's only time to get into the detail when the customer asks you and wants to get into that detail because they don't understand something or they need clarification on something. If you report something here and they go, oh, 1 of 20 workstations needs replacing, totally makes sense. You can turn to the warranty master report and go, yeah, it's Joe's computer. But do they really need that? They get it at that level. If they don't get it, they're going to ask you, and they're going to want to, you know, then you have more information you can dive into if you have to. But if you don't have to, don't do it, because again, you can't unconfuse somebody once they're confused. I hope that makes sense to you guys. From here, let me just bring you back to the website. So if you are a current customer user of Audit, you already know this, but you guys can all try it for free. Anybody can try Audit for free here by just clicking on free trial on the top of the page, and it tells you you're going to get 15 days. Doesn't say it here, but you will get 15 days free, and that will that's where you get started with your free trial. We've got this chat widget all over the place. If you have questions along the way, you can chat in or you can email me. I'm Mike@auditforit.com. You got this webinar invite from me. Just feel free to email me at any time. You do have that same thing. You can get help from within in the system here. You can just click on Get Help, Contact Support. We're pretty accessible. We try and get to you really, really quick, unless it's outside of business hours. So with that said, it's just about straight up on the hour. If you have any questions, I'm happy to stick around and answer them for you. If not, thanks for coming. I hope this was helpful for you all. And give it a moment here. I'm just going to clear out some of the questions that we answered already, so it doesn't. All right. All right, folks. Doesn't look like any new questions are coming in, so I'm going to wrap it up and wish you all a happy rest of your day.